Okay, so welcome to the Skillshare for Holistic Systems Cooperative for email marketing. All right, so I will want us to go around, just say hi, introduce our names. But I'm going to tell the story first. But I want you to be thinking about something while we're doing this. So think about your email inbox. Okay, so you have an email inbox. Somebody sent an email once. I signed up for their list. It's somebody I know. They're a dear person, and they said, "Thank you for joining and allowing me into your sacred space. Your inbox," which I thought was a beautiful sentiment. To me, I don't feel like my inbox is a sacred space. I feel like it's a battleground for my soul that I am battling every day. But I get a lot of spam, and I get there's a lot coming in there. So, but as far as email marketing, I think something that's interesting to think about is in your inbox, like who do you not delete, right? Like you subscribe to folks, you get some emails. Who do you not delete? Who do you not unsubscribe to? Who do you open the email, and skim? And then who do you actually read the emails? And this is not like work, where it's like, hey, this is my job to read and answer this email. Just, other ones. So I want you to kind of think about that. Yeah, and then just share, kind of two quick stories. The first one was from my younger years, and I was backpacking around Europe and the world, and I started to send. I'd sent emails just updating like my mom, about what I was doing, and it was fun, right? And I was excited. So, from each place I'd go, and this is when there was internet cafes, because we didn't have smart things. And so, I'd write another email, and here, sorry, I just want to change my view here. Yeah, so I'd write an email from each place, and soon, my brother and my dad and my uncle and family members, and like this list grew, and I wasn't doing anything about it. It's just that people were interested in what I was writing about, just my travels, from some random person. So I wrote longer and longer emails, and more people came, and so it was really fun. And I came back, and my dad had sort of like printed out all the emails, just on my trip, and that was like my first kind of inkling that, oh, there's something that I'm offering here, and I'm just offering it, and people are interested in it just because it's like, it's me, right? It's in alignment, right? It's just me doing my thing and sharing that, in this way. And so that's interesting. And then, the second was with holistic systems, right? Which you all are on that email list. And, for the first, I felt like maybe for the first year when I was writing emails, and, first it was just to a very small group of people. It was a grind, and I was like most weeks I'd just be like, what am I going to write about? I don't know. And sometimes I would just like, yeah, I didn't have anything good to come up with, but I wrote every week, and every week, I had to come up with something, and it was a really great exercise. And it felt like it was a playground to kind of allow me to, hone what it is, myself, and of course the whole, co-op, like what it is that we're doing. What are we offering? Like, what am I trying to say? I mean, sometimes it's, can be a little more clear. You might be selling, whatever, dog food or something, but still there's something you're trying to say. And so I think that just that act of writing, helped a lot. And there's a lot we can talk about as far as the technical stuff, and systems, but, I think, as I was thinking about this Skillshare, that like that can all be learned, but it's this aligning like who you are with the words that come, on the screen, and how that connects, with the person that you're connecting with, so it's really, email marketing is about like that relationship. So yeah, so I'd like to, have everybody just kind of introduce themselves, their name and where they're at right now, and tell me the emails that you, the emails that you actually do open and read. I'm just curious. Anybody like to start?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just jump in there. My name is Joshua Walters, and I'm a creative director of my own enterprise called Mad One Media, and I'm an email absolutist, an email enthusiast, because I don't work for somebody else, and I don't get 100 emails a day that it's like my job depends on answering it. Email is my own outreach to opportunities. It's a lot of personal stuff. And I just, I started this, I started a Substack a year ago, and my emails have poetry. They have me reading my poems. They have a sound design. It comes with a podcast. So I take the absolutist of the creative lens. But like you, Rob, I mean, I do some of my best writing as an email, as a poet, and as a creative because it's to one person. It's yeah, I'm traveling or I'm divulging my my feelings towards them, Uh Gmail the greatest hits. That's one of my poetry, my up and coming poetry, books. But as far as what I read, I am a very studious about newsletters, and I sign up for a lot of newsletters that are people that are writers or they're creative coaches, and I want to see how they do it and how they format it, what they're using, how it looks, and I study that. I study that. So my email, when I really sit down, I have things in folders and I go searching deep, deep into spam, into updates, into promotions. I do, as much as I can look in there. And the ones that are really effective are people that they write a lot and it's really personal. It's like really long stuff. It's 4 pages
Mm.
emails. And I mean, every email is some sort of marketing. Even me doing my personal poetry, I still want you to subscribe. I still want you to update, upgrade your thing on my Substack and be a subscriber. I mean, so it's art, but I'm still looking for those that participation. Also, any comments or likes or feedback or this works or this doesn't work. And you know, in signing up for a lot of newsletters, um, there's a lot of things I've noticed. I have a lot to share in this, Rob, so you have to take the mic back. I know this is just a check-in, but I'll check in a little later.
It's good. This is our, the Skillshare format. Yeah, please keep going. I'm taking notes. This is helpful.
Okay, well, I have a lot to share on this. Um, for me, what I've noticed is the emails that work the best don't look like a flyer. They look like a letter. They're just words. They're pretty much just words. And the hyperlink is like there's 12 of them, but they all go to the same thing. Just buy now. Just, it's
Mm.
one email for one purpose. And in some of my bigger newsletters, I have like 7 or 8 links and oh, here's this. You should check out this. No one really that all gets lost. And some of my favorite artists here in the Bay Area that I network, they do the same thing. That was like they have all these different links and all these different little cool things that they might be mentioning. They might be promoting, oh, this is a friend, they're doing something cool in this. But I don't think I don't think that's successful. It hasn't been successful for me because it's too scattered, it's too much of everything.
Hmm.
But like kind of like first person, like I am this person and I have this to say, this is what's happening in my life, and this is why you should care. And let's say there's 5 links, but I've gone through the bigger lists. These are guys that have huge lists. All those links are to the same. They're just to the site to press the buy button to just. But the email is a story. It is a letter. It is an original piece of writing. So that's some of my takeaways. But that's a lot of what I browse during the day for my own study on what is working for these people that use email. I rarely use social media, so email is my only outlet to get anything out to people. So
Mm.
that's kind of my that's kind of my only thing that I use. So I've come back to it in the last year full force.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. You really, yeah, because you talked about, some kind of foundational, fundamental things there. Yeah. And so you were talking about not only what you read, but like what you like and what works for you and what you have found works. And so
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of what we can go over today. And I think you hit a couple, like 2, 3 points there that are really good. So I took notes and yeah, we
Okay.
can touch in on those as
Okay.
we go along. But thanks for sharing.
Yeah. Thank
Um,
you.
yeah, Kaleena, Saya.
I'm an absolute newbie at this. So, having started something just from scratch only recently, about a month and a half ago, and it's uh this whole like email newsletter piece is actually daunting for me, probably because I have my own thousands of emails in my inbox, and no matter how much I clean it out, I go in there and the number is like, ah.
Yeah.
So this exact part of marketing freaks me out,
Yeah.
So I've started the Instagram, I've started the Facebook group, I have the homepage going. I don't know anything about WordPress, so I'm just literally trickling into like picking up pieces here and there and how to do this. The marketing piece is like it's daunting also because, like, you don't wanna annoy someone. That's my first instinct, is how many emails does this person have in their inbox, and am I annoying the crap out of them, like, with another email? So that's, like, my feelings, that's my emotional input. I'm so grateful that you put this together, Rob.
Hmm. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And what is as an email, like a newsletter or something that you get that you read?
One that I read would be, I have this artist that I follow who's out in Ohio, I think, and he's my favorite. He goes by Real Fun Wow, that's his brand. And his marketing strategy is to just be like whimsical on the spot and an absolute goofball. So it's like if you open up that email, you're going to read something that's like unexpected, right? He might be serious at the beginning and then boom, he's going to hit you with something that's going to kind of like brighten your day. So something that's that just kind of keeps me on my toes. That's what I like to read.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Very fun. Saya,
So you're on mute.
you are muted.
Um, okay. All right. Hi, everybody. I've kind of forgotten the prompts except that last one that you just reiterated for Kaleena. So I'll start there. Or how do I navigate my email space? Was that one of the
Um,
questions?
the main prompt was that what was basically like when you're in your inbox, like what emails do what emails do you actually read? One or
Yeah,
more. What are the ones where you don't like delete? The ones where you're like, oh, I'm actually going to open this up and read it.
right. Um, there are three that come to mind that are just very personally relevant to me. One is the weekly newsletter from my kids' school. That's very relevant to my life and their lives. And it's usually a mix of announcements and updates on what's happening in different classrooms. It's a school newsletter. Um, Most of us probably seen those at some point. And then another one that I read regularly is from the Green Burial Council, which is a national organization for natural burial advocacy. And that's a cause that's just pretty near and dear to me. And wouldn't call it a hobby. It's more of a passion and maybe a future area of work for me in natural burial advocacy and options, environmental options that are becoming more available. So I generally read that. And the third one that I read is from a career coach I worked with a few years ago. And the theme for all three of those is each one is offering me something that I value that's actually very immediate. The school information is valuable and relevant as such. The green burial is relevant because it's a passion of mine. It's something that I personally really connect with and believe in. And it's offering me like very clear news or advocacy points or updates on the organization or affiliates of theirs who are newly approved as a green burial cemetery. Like it's very concrete in a certain way. And the career coach, she writes like a letter format, and there's always something valuable and relevant. She's not just trying to get me to buy something. She's always giving me something. Each one of those is giving me something every time. And something more than a story, something I can use, apply, talk to my kids about. I don't like being sold to, I just don't like it. I don't like it when it's all like trying to get me to click the buy link. It turns me off. So the idea of the generosity of having a relationship where there's something offered matters to me. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's awesome. First of all, I want to congratulate myself because that turned out to be a really great prompt, I think. I'm being silly, but about the congratulating myself. But that was, thank you all for your input. I think that was really fascinating. I'll just put in mine, and then I just want to kind of reflect on that. Yeah, it's interesting these days, right? It hasn't always been like this, but these days, the emails that I actually open and read are work related. They're basically about like tools, digital tools that I'm using, right? So we're talking things like Asana, project management tool, email marketing tools like Active Campaign, that's probably the email I open most, again, not from like direct work, work folks. I get a lot of emails and I have a lot of interests, but I have like a very small amount of time to, to read any email that's not work related. So it's interesting that those are the ones, that are, again, they're offering, a particular kind of value that I'm connecting with now. And I think that hearing, from everybody, I think it sort of says a lot, because there are different answers. Right? Joshua's reading like creative, writing, and long form emails, right? And Kaleena is reading, it's like something very particular, like about, like from an artist, about, unexpected. And actually those are fairly similar, right? Sighs are very directly on things that are relevant to her. And same for me. So I think there's this relevance, and there's something in there that's like, there's things in there for like general, like what to do, but there's also, I think in there something that's saying like, at the core, right? Like again, write something that's relevant, like coming from you, right? Like what is valuable? What is valuable? What do you have to share? What do you have to say? Because not everybody's going to read your email. I think when I started in email marketing, it's like people would unsubscribe, from clients, whatever, and be so sad, but it's like, it's actually, like, that's fine. That's just somebody saying, hey, this is not, like, this is not for me. And then who to talk to and who not to. So I think I don't know, there's something in there, and Kaleena kind of talking about, you're saying like this particular kind of marketing can be, can be scary for you, or overwhelming. And, I think if you're there's so many different tips and tricks, but I think if you're at the core, you're connecting with, what it is that you want to share. Then it's just a matter of like, of practicing and then putting the tips into place. So, speaking of that, so there's a couple things, right, that Saya said specifically, right, that I want to, touch on, which is, right, like it's about connecting with your audience and providing value, right? So it's just the same as those. So it's about like, what can you help them with, right? There's something that they're wanting from you. There's something that and so, there is a way where, again, it's like this connection thing, because it's not like one or the other. It isn't just like, well, this is what I want to write. It is that. It's like you have to really, be in touch with what you want to write, but you also need to be thinking about, like what it is, the person that you're writing for, what is it that's valuable to them? So you have something valuable. What is valuable to them? It's really like this kind of, this, it feels like this process there. And I like what Saya said, about, even if it's sort of writing or entertainment, right, that's still value, and that's value that a particular, subset, is wanting. So if you're, I think, tapping into that value, in connection with yourself, like, to me, that feels like a foundational key. And then there's all these topics to cover, which we can talk about, but yeah, that really feels like the sort of key. Does that does that connect with folks? Any reflections on that?
Yeah, are you saying keep it personable as well? Like when you say sharing something, and then also like how significant is the personable piece? Because like if I compare email to social media, we look at social media, people get extremely personal, right? And what if we want to keep it on the level of like general and then sharing like resources? How can you connect with your audience without it being like an inundation, you know?
Without it being okay, well, there's something you said. I mean, there's before, in more of like a strategic aspect, which is, you said specifically, and this is great. You don't want to annoy people, right? And that's true. You don't, because there's people unsubscribing because they're just not your audience, but there's people unsubscribing because you're annoying them, because you're sending, usually that's just because you're sending too many emails. And that has to do, with this, getting into this idea of like, your contact list segmentation. So, another sort of like foundation, right, of email marketing is sending the right message to the right person at the right time. And that's about like, your segmentation, your contact list, management. So when you start out, I think it's pretty simple when you start out. You just can send like, you pick like a certain amount of time. You can say, I'm going to send one newsletter a month, or I'm going to send, two emails a month, or one a week. I think that's more up to you. And then you want to kind of track and see what your group is doing. Are people opening them a lot? Are they not? How are they responding? So at first it is kind of simple. I think that when your list grows, that gets more nuanced. Because if your list grows or your business grows, you might have more things to send emails about, right? If you go from, like sort of one service to 3 or 4, or products, you might have more things to send emails about, more things to promote, more things that you want to write about. And so, like, if you're sending, at most one email a week, I think that's fine. you know, or one email every other week, you can just send those off, you know. But once you get, you know, more than that, then you need to be, you know, that's the contact list management, that segmentation, which is dividing up your list and into people's interests, you know. And this is where a lot of the technical tools, you know, and analytics, you know, come into play. And you know what people are clicking on, what emails are people clicking on, what are they opening, what are they engaging in, right? That's another term, engagement. So if somebody is always clicking, you know, if you have service A and somebody's always clicking on that service, right, then you know, okay, they're interested in that. And if they're never clicking on B, then you know they're not really interested in that. And so you can send everybody a general email, but then you're going to only send that person emails about product, you know, A. And then you have less chance to annoy them. So like an example, we're at this very, you know, kind of cool place with Holistic Systems with our email marketing, right? We're at like, you know, 70 people, you know, on the list. Just, you know, not that many, but I noticed, right, that there's some people who started unsubscribing, people who like love me as a human. And so what that tells me is that they're, you know, like we're at this point where there's now a new subset in our list, right? There's the subset of people who are, I think, like the folks here, who are wanting, you know, are more involved, right? So they want an email, you know, they want the weekly email, meaning this is what's happening this week. This is what we're doing. These are the updates on our operations. And then there's not like kind of a different subset that's like, hey, I'm following along and I'm interested, but I don't want like every detail every week. And so now like now I'm going to look at that list and I'm going to divide those people up. And I'm going to say, okay, who really just wants one newsletter a month? And then who wants the weekly emails? And that is me not annoying that subset so they don't unsubscribe.
Okay.
So that's that's kind of an answer about that aspect. You also, you know, were talking about, you know, how personal to get. You know, I think that just depends, right? Like, you know, probably depends on what you're, you know, what you're talking about. You know, Saya's weekly newsletter from the kids' school, you know, is going to have a certain level of, you know, it's not going to get too personal, you know. But the Green Burial Council, somebody might speak there, and it might be, oh, you know, Saya's shaking her head, it might be, but Green Burial Council, somebody might really, you know, might be like speaking more, you know, just from their personal experience or from the heart, you know. An artist or an author's, you know, emails might be, you know, tell their whole, you know, heart-wrenching, you know, tale of their lives. Yeah.
I get very personal, but I think I had some hesitation at first because I'm like, do people want this in an email? This is like life history, life story, traumatic. You know, I'm also doing something different where it's kind of like, here's the chapter of the memoir this week. So it's kind of like in that vein. The people that I look at too for examples, they give you like that light surface personal, which is just like just the basic information, the basic stuff, but they're not going deep. They're not going deep into the pain, you know. Just enough to show you who they are and you know, just you know, basically hook you in with some personal narrative and could be anything. But I think the most successful people that I subscribe to, they're using their own experience in a very unrevealing way. You know, they're teaching something, or you know, yeah, of course, they're selling their workshop or their whatever they're doing, but they're not going, they're not naming names, which is what I'm doing. I'm calling people out and I'm naming names, which is,
Wow.
you know, that's different. But
Courageous.
yeah, I mean, locations, people, you know, I got your picture with your kid on it. I'm posting that. Your kid was here, was at my house. Justine came with her husband. I have photographic proof that they were here at this time. She wouldn't play the ukulele for me. I'm telling that story, you know. I'm going into it. I'm roasting people, okay? But most people don't do that. That's not, most people aren't calling people out. The one that I'm thinking about, it's so specific because it's the only email I get like this. It's a writing coach, um, self-help, wellness, selling workshops, selling retreats. It is long. It's the longest email I get. It's 4 pages. It's so long that it's like, wow, like this is so long. And I'll be honest, I read every word of that email. When an email is too short, when it's just like this much, but here's the link, I look at it, next. And this email, it goes on for 4 pages. It's impressively long. Like it's 2,000 words maybe. It's really long. And I always read the whole thing. I mean, I'm hooked, And so that's another thing. It's um like the attention economy, right? It's like how much are you going to spend, especially, you're annoying someone, you don't want to annoy someone. I've always tried to be as short as I can, but I don't do that anymore. I'm expanding. I give like 1,000 words, I give like a whole essay. So what I've learned from this one creator is that when you click the link and you go to the thing that sells you the workshop, it's not like 3 panels, picture, offering, testimonials. It's like 70 panels. Like it keeps going. It keeps going. And you're like, if you weren't convinced at panel 15, wait till you get to panel 47. It just keeps going. And you're like, where does this end? Where does this end? But I mean, at the end, you get to the button, you're pretty convinced. And I've paid for some services. I've had companies I've worked for paid for her services. And the two that I sent them to compare was like really basic, a couple words, just like a little quote. This is cool, and then like just plain text. And it was like maybe 300 words of marketing. And then I sent them hers, and it was like so like everything is a graphic, and she's also a designer too, right? Everything is a graphic. Everything is like it's incredible. It's incredible. She just keeps selling you. And they were like, well, this looks awesome. And they bought it. They bought it for me. And so she has this program that I think is really impressive. It's like for creative writers that need a prompt every day. And she emails you a prompt every day for a month, and it's automated. So you buy it, you get it. She already set it up. She gets a chunk of money, and you get to write every day, and you get to feel like some writing coach is giving you a prompt. And I work with a lot of creative people, and I'm giving them prompts and stuff, but I think you know, the automation to collect the funds is what we're all looking for in this digital world.
So
Yeah.
I'm curious. I'm
Hi,
curious her.
Justine.
Hi.
Hey, JL.
So her, like the call to action, like her buy button,
Yeah,
is it at the bottom or does it like
it's always
repeat
at the bottom.
throughout?
It's always
Really?
at
So you
the
have to go through all of it.
Well, she does something that I've never seen. It's like you're reading a chapter of a book. It's like she links you into the story for like 100 words, and then she's like, before I get into it, time sensitive sale. This is what we're selling today. And then she goes back to the story
Oh,
and takes
interesting.
you like 1,800 words into self-help, teaching, quotes from Joseph Campbell, quotes. It's like a whole like sermon. It's like listening to a teacher do like a 15-minute class. And then at the end, again, she's like, oh yeah, Did you buy it?
Yeah.
It's
But so there
brilliant.
is a
It's so
there
brilliant.
is a buy thing at the top too,
It's
like
like
after the 100
it's like 15% in. You know, it's like
uh-huh.
it's the hook, you know, I'm hooking you in, and then it's like, oh, before we get into it, time sensitive. This is a time sensitive offer. You might not get to the offer. You might not get to the time limit before you're done reading
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
So buy it now or continue reading.
And
Yeah,
so,
I've never seen anyone do that.
and here we're talking about, we're talking about like the sales page.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is that's a whole, beast unto itself.
What's
Because
that called?
there's
What's that called? No, it's a landing page, right? Where you
landing page and sort of sales page are fairly synonymous.
where they put their info in, where they put their
Well, I'm pretty sure landing page just means where the link takes
Oh,
you,
you're
right? So
right.
like
Yeah.
if the link takes you to home, that's the landing page. If the link
So-
takes you to sales or sign up, that's the landing page is more like a term that's just used to describe where you're getting to.
Where you're landing. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and
Yeah.
it could be different,
It's-
it's based on the link, so.
And the sales page is where you're specifically saying, hey, this is where I'm telling you about what I'm selling, and you can buy here.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you type in a URL, like to a website, the landing page is just the home page because that's where the URL takes you, right? Like a whatever.com. But if you receive a link, whatever, in an email, like whatever that link, wherever that link takes you, even if it's not the home page, that thing is called the landing page. Landing page is just like wherever you're directing people's attention. And it could be different for every email, maybe you're like email where you're like introducing your business. So then your link will take you to the home page, which would be your landing page. The next email is like sign up for my class. So then that link takes you to the classes page. And then now that's your landing page.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, and that
description.
speaks to, you're speaking to, something you mentioned earlier, Joshua, just, was the number of CTAs, which is like the call to action, which is like, a link in an email, the number to have in your emails. And it's actually, yeah, I mean, my experience, and I've, heard a lot, is to have, as few as possible, or to have like one, like you say, and especially, and it's interesting because I was thinking about that. I'm like, oh yeah, you want to just you don't want to like confuse, you want to just have that call to action, right? So it's like, this is where you want the person to go. I was thinking about, right, my, like these holistic systems emails, right? And they have like so many different links. And I've realized that, but then it's like, that also then speaks to that segmentation I was talking about earlier, which is like, they are more like, team, these team weekly, emails, which is, so it's like, oh yeah, these are the links that you would go to if you want to do certain things, because you're a member. And those, I guess would be different than like a straight promotional email, which is like, hey, I want you to do this. There actually haven't been very many of those. Anyways, I'm going off on a little, sort of like side thought on our emails, but so yeah, so to come back to what we were talking about, Kaleena, and right, and Joshua, what you're talking about, it's just it's fascinating to me to see, and to hear what Joshua is talking about, and to bring that into the question of what Kaleena is talking about, is that there isn't like one way to do it, there isn't like, okay, well, you got to be like this personal, or you have to be, like this, more, impersonal or professional, or like you've got to keep your emails short. Some people might, say that, oh, you have to keep them short because the attention span. But then, some people write really long emails, and that's what people want. So it is fascinating. And so I think, there is a way of, and that's why I like this idea of just saying, okay, I'm just going to like write an email, every 2 weeks and send it out no matter what. Because just like with social media, there is like a feedback mechanism. And with email marketing, there's something where you have even a more direct feedback mechanism than sometimes, with like third-party platforms. Because you know the people who are there, right? Like it's this, it's you know this specific contact. Once they've given you their email, then when they're then they are a person who is living in your digital ecosystem. You know, so you're finding out, you know, how specific people are engaging. So you get really good feedback. Yeah, Justine.
Yeah, I liked what you were saying, thinking about how, different people like different things. And something I learned in this, I did like this entrepreneurial business class a little while back. And one thing I thought was so cool from it was they were talking about how instead of like trying to make whatever it is, like content or emails or, your written content on your website, instead of trying to make something that everyone will click and everyone will respond to and trying to find the sweet spot between what everyone likes, just focus on your ideal client. Like, who do you want to attract and what does that kind of person want? Because if you want to have like something that's more like the thing that you're talking about, Joshua, the super, super long, in-depth thing, I mean, she's catering to writers. Writers read and write for a living. So they can probably take in all of that written literature in a very short amount of time. And they're probably like, wow, finally somebody who put the work in to write something for me to read about what they're doing, and they like to have all that information. So it sounds like she really knows who her target audience is. And she's like, I don't care about the people who don't have time for this. I don't care about the people who, don't like reading because they're not going to want to be writers. It's like, it's very clever. It sounds like, yeah, if you can figure out like who it is that you are wanting to attract, or who your ideal client is, who's going to be committed to what you're doing, and then just like communicate directly to them, and I think the hardest part is probably like then not worrying about all the people who don't click it. Like for me, that's the hardest part is I'm like, oh, but because I'm like, sometimes I'm like, oh, the numbers, but it's not about the numbers, it's about the group, it's about like who's there and like what they're bringing and like their passion, and those people can become long-term clients, which will maybe be more useful than just like having constant turnover of randos. So, yeah.
Target audience, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And it isn't about there's a way where it isn't about the numbers. And also like the numbers, if you can be, unattached for them, the numbers, can give you feedback, right? On what do people like or what don't they like? So you could write, yeah, you're like, okay, well, I just want to write long emails. So, I write like a series of long emails for 2 months. And then I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to write like 2 short emails. And then, you can see how, like, okay, how does that affect, the click rates? How does that affect the engagement, the unsubscribing, things like that. And Kaleena, it's also when you're starting out, remember, like most of these people are going to be people that you like know through somewhere. Right. So a great way, even better than just looking at numbers, is just to like ask people.
I also want to just drop into Sia's point about not wanting to be marketed to. And I have direct experience over the last year trying different methods. I'm a email marketing veteran. I think I started like 15 years ago, but the last year I was like, I'm going to do it again after a long, many year break and put all my contacts into MailChimp, had to relearn MailChimp. And my first couple of blasts were things that I used to do, like come to the show or sign up here. It was like there was a basically get people in the room, like invite them to an event. And that did not work. It was like totally unsuccessful, totally unproductive. I spent all this time relearning the machines and doing what I usually do, which is like, hey, come to this, and it used to work. I used to get hundreds of people in the room, and it was not working. Like after 5 or 6 years of not doing it, and so after the summer, I loaded everything into Substack, and I started to just send them the art instead of like I'm asking them to come, I'm asking them to show up. I'm just going to send you what I did. It might be video, audio, or words, but I'm just going to send it to you, and you can look at it or not. It's up to you. But the response I got from other artists was, I like that. You're not asking me to show up. You're just sending me what you did at the thing. You're just sending me this Zoom, sending me this Zoom recording instead of asking me to be there, which is a commitment, and people can look at it or not, But
Yeah.
that difference it was a huge difference in response and how people responded. Yeah.
Yeah. What a great point. Yeah. Thank you, Joshua. That's such a great point. And I think just, to say that, in another way, is like, as email marketing and as the marketing continues to evolve, as it always does, right? Like these days you have to like give people a lot of value, right? There's that word, value. You need to give people value. Because, over time people figured, like more and more people come in and then, and give away things for free, that they were trying to sell. And then that has to up everybody's game, and, I think it's, there's a way where I think it's fine. You just have to look at it that if you're giving value to, to people, there's a way where you have to kind of give away things that you might think that you should be selling, these days. But if you're doing that, right, like, then at some point, somebody is then gonna come and say, oh, okay, well now like now I really want that offering because I know you and I've been reading what you're giving me and it is valuable, and it's helping me. And at a certain point, it's like, okay, now I want, I want that thing that you're actually offering, as for, for money. And it's not that, or just, you sign up for my thing, right? And it's not that email marketing has to be about, what you're selling, but I suppose, that's, if it's called email marketing, then that's probably what, it's about, having people do something, can participate in some way in your offering,
You're marketing something to them. Yeah.
You're marketing something, and maybe participation doesn't necessarily have to be selling, but it's participation, right? So it's like in our HSC world, like it's contribution. There's some sort of participation or contribution. Yeah.
Right. Can I just give a little example real quick? Yeah. So
Yeah.
like in last HSC email, or maybe last week's, Rob mentioned a few different ways of like collaborative organizing or decision-making processes. So the value I got from that is like, wow, I just heard about some decision-making processes that I'd never heard of before. Like I received something new that I didn't have before. Now, I didn't learn everything about them, right? But say I had an organization and we wanted to have a workshop about group decision-making, I would know that Rob's a resource. Or if I knew someone else who might want that sort of education, I might say, oh, hey, Rob might be a resource. You guys might want to hire Rob. Now, I know that's not your area of expertise, but it's an example of like how offering something fresh, something new, something genuine that's of your interest, your passion in an email can translate into earnings at some point. It's not giving away everything for free. It's even the snippets, the like opening a window for someone.
Thank you. Yeah, Sai, that's such a great point and really well, like it's a great little example. Yeah. And so and there's a piece I want to tack on, and specifically for, for Kaleena is that I had to learn, and I still have to learn along the ways, like what what is of value, you know, to people, because there's a way where I'm like, does anybody even care, you know, about like, you know, these different kinds of, you know, governance methods. But over time, you know, I've learned to trust that more. And part of that is because it's fascinating to me. Like, I'm like, I want to just like dig in, right? These governance methods are absolutely fascinating. And they're fascinating because, you know, they are about, you know, what new ways of collaborating and working together. And so that's kind of another, you know, an example of like, you know, how starting to, you know, to connect with like myself and the audience, because I'm like, okay, I'm fascinated with this stuff. You know, I don't know if anybody's interested, but people keep you know, opening the emails, and then they're not unsubscribing, you know, and right, I'm getting some kind of feedback. So that then tells me like, oh, okay, I can keep writing about this stuff, even though there's always this part of me, I'm like, does anybody even like care about this? Just a part of me, you know, not always all of it. Yeah, thanks, Sai.
Yeah, that feeling of like, does anyone even care? I think also a lot of times like people will read your email and they, you know, they might not respond, you know, or like all so far, like all the HSC emails I've gotten, today's the first time I ever responded to one, but I have attended the different groups and I always value like you do. And also I've noticed that like you have like a pattern of like, you know, the first time I saw it, I was like, wait, where's the Zoom link? Oh, where's this part? But then like, because you have this consistency of like having the same pattern, it's easy for me to find those things and be like, oh, I want to learn about who is doing this thing. Oh, I'll scroll to like this paragraph. And it's like easier for me to find because you have like a consistency, which I really value. But there's like a lot of different things that I really get out of those emails. And I it hasn't like occurred to me to be like, hey, great email. I love this and this and this. And so I think, but that's like the hard part, especially, I mean, with any kind of like content or offering is like when you just give something out and you're sending it and there's no like, you know, nothing that says like RSVP or like give me your feedback, you know, like a lot of times people do receive it and they appreciate it, but you on the other end don't feel that appreciation and it can feel like you're throwing things into the abyss. So yeah, it's hard to navigate that, but I really love your emails and I like how, you know, sometimes I'm like, literally I see the title and I'm like, oh, I want to go to that Skillshare. And I don't even like read it. I'm like, I'll figure out what it's about when I go there. But then if I'm like, oh, I'm curious, you know, what they're going to be covering, what it's about, like any questions I have, I feel like it's answered. So also could be that people don't respond because you have answered every question in your email, which means that you're doing a good job. If people aren't hitting you back with questions, it means it worked, you know. This is like another way to look at it.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. That's great wisdom there, you know, or like learn knowledge and experience about, you know, this particular type of marketing. First of all, thank you for your feedback there, right? Like that's really helpful. That's great feedback. And with email with right here is where I want to end there. And still Joshua has the magic powers. It's the magic.
I'm the only one. Am I the only one that can do that?
But I think that you're speaking to something that does there you go.
Sorry, I'll let it
Something
go.
that is you know, kind of a good piece of knowledge here, you know, with you know, marketing and, you know, in general, but like, you know, it's kind of like that tip of the iceberg you know, metaphor, right? So if I send like, you know, 3 weeks worth of emails out and like one person responds and says, hey, great email, I love that, you know, then that's actually, you know, I'm like, oh, that's good, you know, because they're representing kind of the tip of the iceberg. If nobody ever responds, you know, okay, that's something. But because usually, you know, it's like, you know, 5 or 10%. And if you think about it, right, and I spend a lot of time thinking about my inbox. If you think about it, I do read a lot of emails, and just like Justine says, most of the time I don't respond, you know, because it's just like, okay, great, you know, but some, you know, every once in a while I do. So there's this way also where yeah, if people, again, if they're not unsubscribing, because sometimes I keep, emails from subscriptions in my inbox, and I never read them, I just don't, but I like let them stay there. Blah, 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 blah. And then after like 50 emails one day, all of a sudden I'm like, I'm gonna open this one up. And then I open it up and I read it. And I'm like, I want to do that, and it's just, that's kind of how it works sometimes.
If I get 2 responses, I'm not going to do the peace sign. If I do 2 responses, then I feel like that's a hit. If 2 people told me that was a good one, I'm like, yeah, I'm killing it. And
Yeah.
if 0 people responded and my piece was really personal, I'm like, ooh, I'm not, it affects me. It affects me. So, yeah, that feedback it's important.
Yeah. Yeah. But just a little, even a little is like
Tiny,
represents a
yeah,
big group,
anything.
represents a big group. Yeah. Yeah.
People
Yeah.
But
also
it's
don't give you negative. People don't unless even if they're feeling my response, my personal feeling, if they're feeling negative about it, they will be quiet. And if
Oh,
they like it, they'll say thumbs up, you know,
yeah.
in general, because it's in the email. I mean,
Yeah.
so
Yes. About the emails themselves. I think that's true. People
yeah.
will definitely give you negative feedback about like your product or your services if they don't like it. But that's something different. That's the next step. Customer survey. Oh, tip of the iceberg. Look at that beautiful drawing. Dang. You can put
I'm
illustrations
I'm
in your email.
taking notes.
Um, all right, so we're on the hour. This is really great. I'm getting a lot out of this. And I really like, where the information that we're sort of gleaning from each other. Um, so I just want to like check in with folks and see where we want to, where we want to steer the ship. I think that what we're talking about, what we have in this last hour has been really like super fundamental. So we can keep going in that direction, or, I have these, right, there's like 12 possible topics to cover. And so I would love to check in. Justine already raised her hand, so I'd love to check in and see if there's anything, specific folks want to go over or talk about.
Yeah,
Justine?
I'm a little curious about well, a lot of things, but I think one that's been on my mind more is like frequency. Like, how do you, because I've noticed that like you have to kind of, people forget there's like a lot going on all the time, and you kind of have to remind people several times, like especially if you're like promoting an event or something that happens like on a date and a time. But I don't want to like annoy people. I don't want to end up being like, oh, it's another email from that person. I'll, leave that unread and then they never get to it, or they put it in the save for later box and never get to it. And so I'm curious if anybody has yeah, like any experience or any advice on like where that sweet spot is between like, actually being a useful like reminder and like annoying people. Rob, I really like what you do with like one a week,
Mhm.
and like that you put what it is that's happening in the title, because I can like look in the title and be like, oh, is this something, that I'm interested in? And then if not, I can like save it for later. And so that's really useful to me. And it's like it's reliable. I feel like when your things come up, I'm like, oh, it's it feels like it's like part of like the ecosystem of my inbox. It's like it's part of, same with like Joshua, you put out like, your regular podcasts and like little tidbits and stuff. And it's like, these are like the regulars in my inbox, but it's not like, 5 emails from this person and one from, it feels like very like consistent. And I'm wondering kind of what your experiences have been with consistency and yeah, just like frequency.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I go one a week. I mean, that's been good for me. Another one that I subscribe to, it's only once a month, and I feel that's really special when I get that because it's like a treat. It's like dessert, It's like I'm not gonna have it every day, and it's like a special occurrence. Um, Almost all the Substack creators I know, they have like a week, they're on the weekly grind. They send something out once a week. I think it's just, you know, I send it on Tuesday at 9 a.m. and you just schedule it the day before, you know, it's like, it's more of a work week kind of mentality. Once a month is more like an update, life events, greatest hits. That email that I get that's once a month, it's like highlights and it's like positive, like I went to the Google campus this month and I went to this really cool show. It's more like that. So yeah, I think every 2 weeks is kind of the minimum. Oh, I wanted to mention that for promoting something, I've heard this from other Bay Area promoters, that you want to announce 10 days out, so people can have more than a week to put it in their calendar, and you want to send the reminder within 2 days to be like, by the way, it's coming up. But they should already know it's happening within the week. So 10 days and 2 days, the minimum to blast, announce and remind. I think that's the bare minimum.
Do you feel like if people announce it with more advance that people tend to forget about
Yeah,
the
too
event?
much,
Or
too much is not, too much notice is actually, because it's so far in advance, people will totally forget.
yeah, and then it feels like old news kind of later on, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a team like this and we're all producing an event, yeah, we want 4 or 5 months to get ready. But I mean, if it's someone who's attending, you know, that's too much. That's often too much notice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder how
Sorry.
much depends on what's your intention with the outreach, like what you're trying to achieve, what area of work or type of field of business or type of event or type of sale pitch program, you know, and might it depend a lot on some of those things too. I'm not sure. I mean, I've done email marketing in a few different fields, but some of it was like 17 years ago in like marketing cookbooks. So
Yeah, me
I'm
too.
not really sure, you know,
Yeah, the
like
past
I don't have
life.
that much experience in that many fields. Now it's more like in therapeutic models and healing. And I you know, write about that for clients more, but
Yeah.
just want that. And to just complicate that like 10-day thing, I'm a busy single parent and I really want to know about events a month or two in advance because I will put it in my calendar and I will try to get childcare, blah, blah, blah. So it may depend on
Depends on
who you're trying to reach.
Yeah.
Like if you're trying to reach single people, professionals who have a lot of flexibility outside of their work hours, announce it 10 days in advance, no problem. If you're trying to reach older professionals who have families, etc., maybe both. Maybe both. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that I mean I really like what I'm hearing. I mean, I think that you know, Joshua, I think what you're talking about as far as like 1 month, one email a month being kind of the minimum, I think is true. I think if you send something out less, you know, that less often than once a month, people are just, they forget about you, you know. There's this way where there's this happy medium in the inbox where you want to just like remind people that you're there and you exist and you're doing things. But you don't want to send them too much. And there is kind of a sweet spot, and there might be a sweet spot for, you know, certain people or but I think if you go from like, you know, I think Joshua is right on. You go from like 1 month to like one a week. That's kind of like in a safe zone. But then, you know, that's also, Justine, your question is great because it talks about other things, right? There's specials, right? There's events, there's things that you're promoting, right? Which go, you know, are going to take you off of that schedule. And so some of it is dependent, you know, like again, I think what Josh was talking about is a good guideline. You need to like tell us if it's an event, you need to tell somebody about it, and then you need to like tell them again at least, but close to it. Some of it depends on what it is, right? If it's like a retreat, to the tropics or something, then you just start sending that, emails about that well in advance.
Yeah.
So some of it, and then the last piece, and this is what, what's great about these tools, like the email marketing tools, the last piece, I think there really does speak to this segmentation or this like behavioral marketing. And that is if it's basically like you are tracking the engagement of your audience, and you can do that really easily with these tools, with your MailChimp and ActiveCampaign and Zoho and GetResponse and all the other ones. If you're doing that, right? I mean, it takes a little, once you set it up, I think it works, it's pretty easy if you know how to do it, but it takes a little effort. But once you do that, the more people are engaged, the more emails you can send them without annoying them. Right? So if somebody opens your email, once every 6 months, then you're not going to blast them like 4 times before every event. Because if you do, then they're going to unsubscribe. If somebody opens all your emails, then you can send them as, like they will appreciate more reminders because they're more engaged, right? So, and that's something that you can track, you can segment. So, right, if somebody's really engaged, like they actually want more, and people actually respond back, to especially, like some clients, they will respond back and they'll say, oh, thank you for that, like extra reminder. I really like, I blew off, the first 3 emails and blah, blah, blah. But, those 2 emails, in like 2 days, that was really helpful. So I think that's that segmentation, is a really powerful tool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If I'm going to travel somewhere, I want to know 4 months.
Yeah.
I want to know. Yeah, 4 months in advance. I mean, like, yeah, hey guys, I'm getting married. Like, that's like 9 months, a year in advance. So I mean, it definitely depends on what it is. Yeah.
I called my parents the day of. I was like, hey, I'm getting married today in 2 hours at the courthouse.
2-hour notice, mom and dad.
I know you live an hour and a
Hall.
half away, so can you leave in a half hour?
2-hour notice. Are you going to be there?
My dad
Wow.
dad was already at work and he called in sick, but he was like there. He was like, I'm gonna use a sick day. My daughter's getting married in 2 hours. And my stepmom had just dropped off my little brother at school and she just turned around and went and picked him back up.
Oh my God.
Shotgun wedding? What's a shotgun wedding? Oh no, wait, that has to do with pregnancy. Never mind. Okay.
Well, no, what's it? Okay, what elopement, shotgun? No, was it elopement? Because you didn't ask for their permission, right? You just asked them.
But also, so see, this is like such a sidetrack, but
We're going way sidetracked now.
I'll make it quick. Right, so you can put this in your email newsletter when you're looking for material about things to roast people on. You can roast me on this.
I'm gonna roast you.
You can pretend that I invited you to my wedding after it happened.
I got the invite 3 years later.
Yeah. But yeah, so my husband's family was visiting from Canada, and his visa was running out, like gonna be up, and so either he had to go back to Canada or we had to get married, or we do like long distance again. We'd already done long distance for like 4 years while he was traveling in the circus. And so he had a visa through the circus, and the circus went bankrupt, and he left, and so he didn't have his visa anymore. And so his parents were visiting from Canada, and they like never travel, never go. I mean, yeah, they don't get out here very often. And his visa was expiring in like 3 weeks, and they were there for 2 more days. And it was like a Sunday, we were like talking about getting married. And they were like, well, the courthouse is open tomorrow. So it'd be cool to do it, if we have to get married in the next 3 weeks, we might as well get married while your family is here. And so we called the courthouse, you know, and the lady at the courthouse was like, this isn't Vegas. Like, you have to, like, you know, book your wedding, like, you know, at least a week in advance. And I'm like, can you just see if there's any spots? And she's like, I work here every day. We never have same day appointments. And I'm like, can you just check the books, please? Like, I was a receptionist. I know how this works. Just look at the calendar and tell me it's a no. She's like, oh, actually, we had 2 cancellations. You want to do 8 a.m. or 11 a.m.? And I was like, well, it's 7:45, so let's do 11.
That's wild.
I guess it's called a circus wedding. There, it can have its own name. Circus wedding.
Called circus
Yeah.
wedding.
This is not big. Yeah. Well, see, that makes more sense now because, you know, it's like it's a visa wedding, you know, it's a,
Yeah, it's a visa wedding.
That's really what
it's
it is.
really what
Yeah.
it is. Yeah. It's
For
like a visa
papers.
wedding. Yeah. Yeah. I need this person to stay with me in this, in this country where I live. So
Get
we're
him
gonna,
in. Yeah, I need to
Yes.
sneak him in the border.
We want to keep dating, so we're gonna get married today.
yeah.
Yeah, so I guess the email in that situation would be, I couldn't send the invite because there'd be no notice. I would have to send the one, you know, a month out. Look what we did this month. We got married.
Yeah. Well, but I think that it also speaks to you did send an email 2 hours before the event. And your parents came because of their high level of engagement, we would say.
Yes. Yes.
They're,
It was a
they're
riveting
very
story.
engaged in your
But I was literally engaged.
yeah,
It's very short
exactly.
engagement.
But you don't announce till 5 years later. You're like, here's our 5-year anniversary, right?
Yeah.
We got
Yeah,
married,
we wanted to do an actual wedding, like to invite friends, but then we kind of forgot it was our 5-year anniversary. So now we're coming up on year 6. So I think we have to wait for year 10. Anyways,
How
frequency.
about the 7-year itch wedding? Oh, 7-year
Oh, there it went.
itch wedding.
There it went.
That was unintentional. That was unintentional.
It was perfect.
All right. Email marketing Skillshare. This was just, I'm just popping up the list of possible topics or so what else? Other specific areas that people are like, hey, I have a question here. I want to go over this.
I like bullet point 5, but I already chose something. So if other people want to go, but I'm curious about the writing compelling content. Like what?
Okay.
Yeah. But if other people have other things they're curious about.
Well, I mean, I can speak to that a little bit, you know, because I think that's, you know, in some way that we've been talking about that one kind of the whole time, you know, essentially, which is great because I think it's like, yeah, it's foundational. Right. And I think what we've been talking about, you know, is like compelling content. You know, there's not like one way to write compelling content. You know, it really is this like, you know, this like connection and feedback loop between you and what, you know, it's like what you love, what's valuable to you, what's fascinating to you, what you want to talk about. And then, you know, how that matches with, you know, with your audience, you know, your ideal, you know, client, you know, and then the feedback loop, you're tracking that through engagement. So, you know, that being said, right, writing compelling content, you know, some of that is like, you know, it's looking at the content and saying like, well, how is this valuable? You know, like, you know, in the promotional, you know, the promotional, you know, emails, it's like, you know, there's a lot to be said there, and there's different, you know, ways of, you know, approaching that. You know, there's some people do like, you know, the hard sell. I don't know that flies so much anymore. There's another aspect that I think is interesting. Subject lines. So subject lines is fascinating to me because, right, you know, there's like these you know, like primary measures for email marketing, right? There's like open rate and there's like click rate, you know, and where they're engaging, right? Open rate is a little harder to tell these days because of Apple privacy and all that. But, you still have baselines, right? So, but whether you can measure the rate or not, like a subject line has a lot to do with, you could have the most compelling email in the world, but somebody has to click on it to open it. So there's something, about subjects lines that I, try and give some cadence to, because they do have something to do with people. You even said it, Justine. They do have something, like a major piece, to somebody opening your email to get to that compelling content. So that's something to like think about and to track, and that's actually, you can track, again, not as reliable as they used to be, but you can track these open rates. You can do A/B testing. Most, all these tools have A/B tests, which are very cool, which means you can A/B test subject lines, right? So let's say you have 1,000 people on your list, or 100 people on your list. You send, like 20% of them the email ahead of time. And so you send 10%, one subject line and 10% another subject line. And then the one with the higher open rate is the winner. And then the rest of the 80% get the email with that subject line. There's also, yeah.
Sorry, can you repeat the last two sentences you said?
Yeah, so right, so you can send a portion of your audience two separate emails. So, one with one subject line, one with another, and then the subject line with the higher open rate. So if more people open, if it's whatever, like 50 people, out of 1,000, open subject line B, and 43 open subject line A, then the rest of the people, the rest of that 70 or 80% will be automatically all sent subject line B.
A/B
Whoa,
testing,
that's cool.
batch testing or A/B testing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can even do that with different, like if you have different audiences. So like, for example, if you like have people, so like maybe for Joshua, if you have people that are super into the comedy stuff, but maybe they're not so into like the vulnerable talk share kind of stuff, you could have like a subject line that you send to like the group of people that are like down to get into the nitty gritty and are interested in like your personal experience. And then you could set a different subject line for the people that are just like kind of more like want to keep it light and, focus on the comedy.
Yeah, it's the segmenting. I mean, MailChimp does it
Mhm.
really well. Everyone has a category, and you can do A/B testing automatically in there, be like, here are my two subject lines, and it does it pretty much automatically for you.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow, I didn't even know about that.
Yeah. I mean, that's a email marketing thing since the beginning of email marketing. So
Yeah. And the tools are all really, they pretty much all have that. And yeah, they'll do it, right? You just go through, it makes it easy for you. You just kind of go through and give it the things, the two subject lines like Joshua was saying, and it just then automatically, you don't have to like it'll just automatically, measure for a certain amount of time. So and that's that's like such a great thing to do. But it's a reason to write emails ahead of time. I heard, I have a hard time getting to that because I'm always like, oh, well, the email needs to go out now. People need to get it now, right? So I can't do the freaking A/B testing because you have to give it a little time,
yeah. Well, it's like you need to edit your newsletter. I mean, it's like, I try to give myself a week out, or I love scheduling because it's like I know, like I'm getting up and I'm like, it's sending. Yeah, the work I did yesterday is sending. So that's been a big, it's been a big difference. Then I got to get it out now, and now I'm 4 hours late, and all those things.
Mhm. Anybody else have any thoughts on writing compelling content?
Yeah, I'm curious to see, I guess a fun question could be like if we reflect on all the different emails that we receive, maybe we could go around and see like what each of us considers to be compelling content. You know,
Mm.
maybe if one of us can think, like Joshua, you already talked about, you know, one of your friends who sends like a super, super long thing and you're interested, you read every word. And so I guess the question reformatted for you could be like, you know, what is it in what she's writing that keeps you reading? Is it like, is she telling a story? Like what is actually happening in that content? What is it? What is the content? And then we can each like think of an example of the last email that was super long that we read, and or that was super fascinating that we read, and like what it was about that kept us reading.
The prompt in the beginning
Great.
before you came in, Justine, was what's an email that, like, of the emails that you get, what's one email what's a style of email that you inspires you or you like that you always read? That's
Yeah.
what brought that up.
Okay, so you guys already did that.
Well, we did.
Well,
we
well,
We talk
did.
about what it is that's being
Well, we
written,
did, but
like
we
what-
didn't. I think this is a very specific question, and I think that was, mine was a little more open. It was more like what emails do you read? And then we actually did talk about that. But I think this is good because I don't think that there's like one sort of, like this is how you make compelling content. So I think it might be good, but for everybody to go around, yeah, and sort of that specific, answer, meaning like, okay, what's an email that comes to mind that you read that you feel like this is compelling content, and then why? Yeah.
I like personal. I mean, I like learning something. Yeah, I mean, but I think the style of writing too. Like you mentioned, this is a writing coach. She's flexing that she's a good writer. So when you have her as your mentor, you want to improve your writing, you want to be a professional writer, you want to get published, all the things that a writer wants. So she's showing you that she can do this,
Nice. Saya, when you think, oh, this is compelling content, what's that? What's that example?
I just decided to like glance at my email inbox,
Yeah, I'm gonna do that.
and it so depends on what I'm looking for, right? National Grid sent me, that's our electric provider, we're preparing for an April storm. That's the subject line. We're going to get a weird snowstorm maybe this week. So that's compelling because they're telling me they're on top of it. And that's good to know. Now, if I hadn't properly weatherized or something, I'd want to read their recommendations, but I know how to deal with a power outage here. I'm good. I got it. But it's compelling because they just told me right up front, like what the story is. On the other hand, I have another email from someone. I was talking about green burial earlier, but I'm also on an email list for someone who runs a business of this may be a little out there for people, but it's human composting. So it's a way of managing our bodies when we're done with them. And she's on the cutting edge of this whole industry. And I know it's going to be interesting. I know, to me anyways. They're usually written a little longer than National Grid, for example. So I have a hard time answering this kind of question because it depends what I'm looking for. Yeah.
Yeah. I have
So
an
it
interesting, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna respond to Sia's thing.
Great.
So it sounds like for you, it's like what the what's it called? What the subject line is going to determine whether or not, you open the email, and that if it's a topic that you're currently interested in, then you might want to read more about it. Or if it's something that you already feel like you know about, you kind of skip it. So I'm curious, like, say like it is a subject that you do open the email, and then there's like all this content. What, like when you talk about like something that speaks to you, is it like a certain style of language? Is it like the way that things are written? Is it like if somebody's telling a personal story, or if it's more like fact-based? I'm curious, like what kind of would qualify something as something that speaks to you?
Still hard to answer. Yeah, I'm sorry. It depends on who I'm looking for. Like the human composter, like she's writing me a letter that's it's from her organization. It's not so personal. But because I'm interested in the content, in the activity that they're engaged in, I will read it. I was thinking of another example. We have a local meteorologist here who posts on social media about like our very local weather ecosystem, and it's great. And he breaks his messages up into a very long subject line that basically tells you it's the cliff notes, right, of what the weather's going to be. Then he's got a section that tells you what you're going to read if you read the whole email. Then he's got a section, a little brief one that's like his advertiser, his sponsor, Tandem Bagel Company. Then he's got the quick notes. Then it has day by day bullet points. Friday might be like this, Saturday, etc. And then if you want, you can read this huge letter that talks about weather patterns and what it's coming from where and which cold front and no. And you can basically like study meteorology if you want to read the whole thing. I don't usually get that far down.
Yeah.
But
That's
it's
cool, though, 'cause
fascinating. It's cool that it's
yeah.
there, right? Like
That's a cool format. Like it gives a little bit for everyone, and
Right.
people can decide how they want it. It's like choose your own adventure kind of.
Yes, exactly.
That's really cool.
Hmm. Yeah, that is cool.
I think it makes it
Thank you.
accessible to different people.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're kind of like you're addressing everything that kind of like the directors of the world, the busy people of the world, they get what they need to know even just in the subject line.
Right.
And then if they want to check it later, it's like they can save it or whatever and know that the information's there. Then you have people that are like maybe a little bit more curious and they just, want to see the bullet points and be like, okay. And then you get the people that are, that are really curious or just fascinated by weather and nature or, live in a place that's really affected by weather and they can see exactly what is happening.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's really cool. A good way to like address earlier when we were talking about like trying to write for different audiences. That's a really cool method too, where like you write for your most impatient audiences up top, and then you give little goodies to the people who have more time or are more invested down below.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's very cool. And it's like, it's like what you said. So actually, so this is like a good answer, for, okay, one way to write, compelling content is to, it's almost like you're segmenting your audience within each email, is basically saying like, giving choices. And it's what you said, Justine, about, you like the TLDR, sort of in the holistic systems, the bullet points at the top. Right. And that's just saying like, hey, if you have 3 seconds, here's, we're going to tell you what's going on. And then there's more written at the bottom. And, and this person, the weather person in Saya's emails is doing that in a, like a, a very thought out way. So that's cool. I wouldn't have kind of thought of that, but I'm just writing down a note,
I mean, that's a particular field too, right? The weather impacts everybody. So he doesn't really need to segment his audience because he's sending it to people who've signed up for his newsletter. And all of them are affected by the weather, right? Which is a little different than what Joshua was talking about, like writers who are going to be readers. Oh, Justine, you articulated that so well.
But there's a
I
way.
lost my train of thought, but
Oh, okay. Yeah. But I think there's a way, right? Like everyone's affected by the weather, but some people like, I don't care, if I want to know what the weather is, I'll look out the window. But there are people who are getting that email, even in the people who are getting the email are the ones who like, I want to know weather information. But some of those people might be like, I want to know weather information in 5 seconds. And some might be like, I want to know a lot about the weather. Right. So there's 2 sort of segments, but there's a way where like both of those segments are being served in one email.
yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I could imagine like the same thing maybe going for for the writing coach example, like maybe I aspire to write a book, but I know that it's not something I'm going to do right now. So maybe I'm not going to read the entire 3,000 words every week or every month, but maybe I want to stay on that email list because I know at some point I want to engage more with writing. And someday it's going to line up where that person's offering a program and I'm going to say, yes, now I'm going to click and buy their program because now I have, kids in college and I'm going to write that book.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's still something of value for you in there. Yeah. What came to me is, it's a good question. What came to me is, as far as like, well, what is compelling content to me? And I started thinking, about some of the emails that I read, and there's this person, whose emails I read a lot, right? Named Simone Grace Soul. And I think I might have mentioned her in another meeting,
Oh,
but
yeah.
she's like a marketing, she's a marketing expert, and so she, teaches marketing and sells, has courses for that and all that. And to me, your content is compelling, and she writes in a certain, in a certain way, right? And it's compelling to me. But I think if I back up, what I thought was like, what compelling content is to me is I want to learn something that I don't know. That's what, like this root of it. I want to learn something I don't know. If you're, or something that's insightful to me. I think that's the kind of core of it for me. Because if you're telling me something that I don't know, or that I already know, or that I've already sort of get, I'm not sure why I'm reading it. Even if it's like, hey, I'm advertising like this product, or this service. It's like, oh, I didn't really kind of know that could be like that, or that I needed that, but maybe I do. And then the second thing below that, that I thought of was that the person that's writing, that's talking about it, that they know what they're talking about. That's, to me, that's compelling. If I'm like, oh, this person knows what they're writing about, what they're talking about here, to me, I feel compelled. I feel like that's compelling content, even if the style might be different. And then this might just be me, but like, there's a way where the thought came in was like, don't waste my time. And, and I have a whole time thing, and, but like, even if it's like a 4-page, email, it's like, there's still a way where, if I want to read, like a longer email, it's like, I want to know that this, that there's like thought that went into it, that somebody is crafting something, because a 4-page email can be, I can read it and it can take, 10 minutes, but I don't feel like that wasted my time, but it could be like 1 page and it's just, maybe, gobbledygook or unnecessary stuff. And I'm like, why are you wasting my time? So those were the things that came to me. There's also, just to speak from the expert's mouth herself. This is something, and I actually bought, right? Like, I very rarely buy anything. buy stuff, but wait, why is this not spreading out? There we go. But this was Simone, and I feel like I got so much value from Simone's for like free stuff, that at a certain point I was like, all right, I'm gonna like buy this. And yeah, and I like this word, the first one, and maybe this is another good way of saying compelling content, but like congruence. And maybe that's kind of what we're talking about when I do this thing and I'm saying, oh yeah, this like feedback or this relationship between you and who you're talking about. Yeah, is like congruence. It's congruence with you, what you like, what you're selling, what you're fascinated with, what was valuable to you, what's valuable to them. So those are my thoughts on compelling content.
I find it very reassuring to hear from this group that people are reading longer emails. There's
Me
been
too.
so much talk about shortened attention spans, and and then it's a new paragraph. And for some things, I really do like to read that way and get the information like in a very simple, clear format. But anyways, it's nice to hear people are writing longer and reading and engaging with language in more than a soundbite kind of cliff note way.
Yeah,
Mm.
I think it probably, I mean, it probably also has to do with like the people in this group are all older, or, we're all like 30s, 40s and so on. Like I've noticed that with like Gen Z, there's definitely like just because they grew up with like TikTok and stuff, that there's a much shorter attention span. So yeah, I think it also depends on, if you're targeting younger generations, it would be probably harder to keep their attention. But I don't know that any of us are. Like I'm not, I'm also in like the health and wellness business, and usually it's older people who, have developed that like awareness of their body or their anxiety or whatever it is that like draws them to that sort of work. Rarely it's like the kids that are bopping around drinking and destroying their bodies,
Mhm.
So
Mm.
yeah, I think yeah, I like when I get a longer email. I think there's a few things that I respond to. I actually like when an email is just like all text, but it's all the same like format, or like it's in it's sent by MailChimp, so maybe it has like one image or a banner or something. And then the font itself is like elegant and the margins are nice and it's like pleasant. It feels like I'm reading like a blog article or something, like it's pleasant to look at. I think that the visual, like, when somebody has like creates space, doesn't feel like all compact or whatever, that kind of like helps me like scroll, and like I feel like I'm invited to take my time because there's visually all this space around me, around what I'm looking at. Another thing is like, yeah, if there's like an image every couple paragraphs, I can kind of like take a break from reading and I see something, that kind of stimulates my visual like needs or whatever, and then I keep reading. But yeah, I've definitely noticed that like with emails that are sent just through Gmail, which is actually how I've been doing it so far, I don't spend that much time on them. But emails that are sent through like MailChimp or something where there's like the negative space around it and it's sort of isolated and it's more aesthetically pleasing, I will spend more time looking at it.
Mm.
So, but I think that might also be a personality thing. Like I'm very like visually like I really like things that are, I can be like visually put off, and like not read something that's like really important just because I'm like, I feel overwhelmed by all the different types of fonts and all the crunched like sizing or whatever, So yeah.
Mm. Yeah. And yeah, thank you. I wanted to, I just, I had a sense to touch into like email marketing and where that sits in like, all the different marketing channels, right? Because there's a lot of different channels, there's a lot of different things you can do, right? We know there's social media and there's so much there, and advertising there and third-party platforms. And so it's a question of also, where does it, who is your audience, right? And how, how do you want to target them, and how do you want to speak with them? And, so I do think that there's this, there's I'm just going to bring up another graphic here. I don't know if you can see that. Right. So there's this whole journey, of like where people are finding you, and a lot of, some of this has to do with, what it is that you're promoting. But, there's this general sort of journey, right? Like, awareness, is sort of, they're like, okay, I'm aware I have an issue, and then, consideration. Okay, I now know what my issue is. I'm looking around, but I'm not sure how to solve it. And then this decision is when they're saying, okay, I'm going to I'm gonna buy, right? And then they're a customer, and you can continue to help them out, and then you want them to become, an advocate, right? So this is kind of a fairly, well-known framework. But the reason I'm bringing it in is because it's interesting to think about where email marketing sits here, because, and again, like this, this is like a funnel, right? Email marketing is something where you have to actually get somebody's email. So somebody has to, you have to bring them in. You have to get their email from somewhere. And so, there are some different kind of purposes for email marketing along this route, right? So, what the first purpose, there's a purpose as far as informing them about what it is that you're offering. Right. So what you're offering, and just informing them, helping them, sort of decide, oh, is this for, is this for me? Along the way, then the decision, right? So it's saying, hey, I'm sharing this offering with you, so you can decide, right? These are good reasons why. And then somebody, once somebody sort of has, purchased or participated in one of your offerings, right? Then there is this matter of and this is another sort of way of thinking about segmentation. There's this way of okay, well, now I want to keep this person engaged, and now I want to create, a deeper relationship with them. So this is a person who, I might send different, emails to every once in a while, rather than, a person who, is signed up, they gave me their email address, but they might, only be so interested. And then, this kind of retention or advocacy phase is the, is the final, is that sort of phase where it's now I just really want to kind of have this long-term relationship with this person, and I want them to go out, and I want them to forward, right? Like today, Justine was Holistic Systems Advocate. She forwarded the email to somebody else. That's the pinnacle, that's the pinnacle. Somebody marketing for you, right? Doesn't get better than that. So it's just interesting. I just want to bring in, because it's interesting to see, right, that what, it isn't, I'm not saying, oh, I mean, everybody should be doing email marketing as their number one, platform. It really depends on whether you're looking to bring in new people, or whether you're looking to, sell to and continue that relationship with the people who are in your audience, with your leads, right? So, so some of this that's just top of the funnel is that's social media, and that's advertising, that's your website, that's, bringing people in. So there is a whole aspect, and we don't need to get into it today, but there's this whole aspect of lead generation versus lead nurturing. So email marketing is lead nurturing. Okay, I have this lead now. This person, I know who they are. They've expressed their interest. We are engaging. So now I'm nurturing that lead. And so then that's, that's different than lead generation, which is I'm just writing to the general, public. It doesn't mean that your content is, necessarily like always going to be different, but it's just something to, to kind of keep in mind. There's 2 new messages. I Facebook message people too. Oh, to tell them I emailed about the Skillshare. Oh, Joshua's got to run. Bye, Joshua. Yeah, see, that's amazing, right? Like that's better, Justine. That's better than if it's better than if I sent out something myself, to those folks, because it's like, oh, okay, this is a person who they may not know me, but they know you.
Yeah. I realized I
So
should have done it yesterday though. I did it this morning. It was like 11, like 1 hour,
yeah, and
visa wedding style.
there's a way, speaking of this like segmentation, right? There's a way where I think that we could start, again, using holistic systems as an example, where we can start to segment our audience. There's probably 3 segments. There's just like the people who just are interested and want to get a monthly newsletter. Then there's like the people who are more involved, more, and then there's probably like the core members, or people who come a lot. We could probably send them an extra email. We could send them an email on Monday like we usually do, and then just a quick reminder email on Tuesday morning and say, hey, the meeting's today or the Skillshare's today. And
I would
because we know
enjoy
that
that.
there's we know that, like, we send that to Justine, we know Justine's super engaged, she's not going to unsubscribe. She might go and just change her email preferences. That's a whole other like really good aspect which pops in, is having a subscriber preferences page. So if you just have unsubscribe at the bottom, you're just giving that person no choice. You're saying it's all or nothing. But if you have unsubscribe link at the bottom, you have a subscriber preferences page, and you have that set up, and that subscriber preferences page says, hey, tell me how often you want to email, monthly newsletter, weekly, I want everything from you. Then that person, you don't even have to guess, like what you do to annoy them or not annoy them. They just tell you. Anyway, so I just went off on a lot. We get about 5 minutes left. I'd love to hear any thoughts from folks about all of that, or if there's any other, questions or areas that we haven't hit.
I really like what you were just saying about segmenting the audience, and having, the idea of having 2 mailing lists. Like maybe you have your mailing list of people who you got, like they're a lead, you got their information, they gave you their information, or you just already know them, but they haven't really showed that much interest in what you're doing. And maybe what you're doing is not specific to what they need. So they're not responding, not attending things, and just sending them like the first initial email of like, this is happening then. But then, doing reminders, people that are your regulars or who have actually written back to you, even if they haven't joined something yet. I think that's I'm like writing that down. I think that's like a really cool way to go, because I do feel like, I've had a few times where some of my regular class students have been like, oh shit, I missed that workshop. I meant to go to that. And I was trying to not bother people with too many emails. And then these students that wanted to go just were too busy to like actually remember the thing I sent 2 weeks ago, And so had I, had a separate email list that I could, just send the regulars or even the people that show more interest, I would probably have more turnout, because that's somebody who actually responded and told me that. But there's probably more people who did want to go and then like, oh, should I missed it? And they didn't take the time to email me that they missed it. Like, obviously I know they missed it. I was there, they weren't, So it's a really interesting, interesting thing to think about, of like having compartmentalizing or segmenting your audience. And even doing that with like, could be something like if you are like writing a blog article on a certain subject, that is somewhat related to like what you're doing, that you think this group of people would be interested in, instead of just like hoping that they find it from your blog shout out on your Instagram or whatever, you can actually just send those people the blog. Like I always think of like,
Absolutely.
I think I've been thinking about like, here's the mailing list. What am I going to bother everyone with? What's worth it? And then I rarely send emails, as opposed to being like, well, some people are genuinely interested and they want to know. And, you know, they deserve to know, you know, that that's happening, or that there's this content that they could read for free or whatever it is. So yeah, that's really fascinating to me.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I won't go into all this, but there's like, there are different ways, where you can segment your audience, and this is, you can segment them by what are their interests? What are their behavior? Do they click on links? Do they not? Are they a customer? What have they bought? Things like that. What is their engagement level? When's the last time people have clicked? So there's a lot of different ways to do that. Yeah, and it's very powerful. It's really powerful. Like, I know you were talking, and it sort of reminded me again, this person's Simone Soul. I get a shit ton of emails from this person. I get a lot, and I'm like, how are people not? And then, it realized it. I'm like, yeah, because I open so many and I click on so many, right? So I'm so engaged. So I feel fairly confident that not everybody on her email list gets the number of emails that I get, because she's got like an event or something coming up, and I'll get like 3 or 4 emails in a freaking week or something, saying, hey, this thing is happening. But I'd be very surprised if everybody on her list got that many, but again, I'm like super engaged. So she's like, well, why not, throw everything at him. He's not gonna, it's right. And like then that's 3 more chances to get me to whatever, buy something. So yeah. Saya.
I was just thinking that there's this authentic marketing expert. This is like the only one that I follow, and he talks a lot about top of mind. So you're getting so many emails from someone, so they're on your mind because you're engaging with them. And so if you're going to buy anything, it's probably going to be from them. Or if you're going to recommend a client or a friend study or hire someone, it's going to be them, because you've seen their name that many times and you've read their content that many times. Yeah, that's what's coming to mind for me. I have a question. I know we're kind of at time, but I've seen some people do like periodic opt-ins for their email, but it's mostly for a segment. It's not like, hey, do you want to get my emails ever anymore? Like, once upon a time you said you were interested. Are you still interested? It's more like, which I have a question about. Do we do that? Is that a good idea to just like not turn into spam that people don't want, but they're just ignoring it or sending it to junk without actually unsubscribing? Because that does a disservice to your entire list.
Yeah.
Or people are asking folks to opt in, like, oh, we're launching this new initiative. Do you want to hear about it? Or this new branch of whatever we're doing, do you want to hear about it? And so just ethically, but also in terms of the deliverability of our emails, what about those things?
Totally. I'd say, yeah. I mean, in general, yes to all that. That's such good. Yeah, that's really good information. And, and I think that is right. We haven't, gotten into sort of like the, too much the nitty gritty there, but again, that is really the, the power of this like segmentation, and segmentation and behavioral marketing, right? Which is, which is really just getting people what they want, and in this format, email marketing, right? There's a lot of different ways to get great feedback. And so the idea is like, sometimes we think, it's like, if we ignore that, like, you might spend so much time writing emails, and so much time like thinking about them and sending them and trying to get people. I need new leads. But like, a little segmentation goes a long way, to keeping those leads. And then, like you're saying, that contact, your list management, of like clearing out people that you don't want. So I think, there's a yes to all of that, right? Like there's, so there's like, you measure engagement and you say, okay, well, I'm going to say like, I'm going to consider people who haven't opened an email, or engaged in any way in 90 days, or in 6 months. I'm going to consider them disengaged, right? And then I'm going to send them a re-engagement campaign. I'm going to say, hey, do you still want to be on my list? And if I don't hear from them, I clean them. So that's
Mhm.
something, that's something you can do, right?
Right.
And then that's going to raise your, deliverability. There's something that that you were speaking to directly, Saya, which is like, sort of like specific opt-outs, right? And so, this is something that, one of my clients does a lot because they sell a lot of courses, right? And so they're going to say, well, we're going to highlight this course. And again, these are big things. These are residential retreats. So they need to give people reminders. They want to do exactly what Saya was saying, keep them top of mind. They need to send emails way ahead of time and have reminders. But the first two emails, they'll say, hey, if you don't want to, if you're not interested in this retreat, just click this button and you'll opt out of it, just from emails of just about this one retreat. Don't worry, we'll still keep sending you all the rest.
Right.
So that's a really great idea because then, people just, essentially you're just saying, I don't want to annoy you.
Right.
If this isn't of interest to you and is going to annoy you to get like 5 more emails about it, then just click this button and we won't do it. Yeah.
So you can set that up like through MailChimp.
Yeah, you can set it up. And I know that people talk about MailChimp a lot. There's a lot of other platforms that are really good. I just like, I don't know. I don't love MailChimp, but I have, I just,
What platform do you use?
I use, well, like my favorite platform is ActiveCampaign. And, yeah, it's amazing. And it's definitely, it's better than MailChimp, but it's, it's a little more cost than MailChimp. But, it's great. There's a lot you can do with it. And, there is a way where I think that, it's important not to like, buy like the best toys if you're not going to, use all the features on them. Another one that I really like is GetResponse. I think it's really good and really like user friendly, and it has there's ways where it actually, I opened up these all just for this, just in case this question came up. Let me see. Yeah, so this is this is ActiveCampaign. And this is GetResponse. You can actually build a website with GetResponse. I built one for free. I was just trying it out. So this is like an automation. And then, so I like those, as MailChimp alternatives. I've heard good things about ConvertKit, but I haven't tried them. The other one that I actually were using now, whoops, just don't want to show people's contact information. The other one we're using now, that Saya and I are becoming experts in is Zoho. And I don't know that it's like necessarily the best, but I think it works fine. And it's a low budget alternative. It's like pretty cheap. In fact, we're actually on the free plan right now. So we're on the free plan and like doing everything we need to do, essentially.
So
And then
that's what you send all the emails out about all the classes
Yeah,
and stuff through.
yeah, here they are. And it's good. And they've got good, good reports. You can see who clicked and who opened and who didn't. I was just trying to find like because some clients, some folks, they're starting out or they're solopreneurs, and it might take like a year or 2 years or something to just like, kind of develop what you're doing and get to that point where you're like, okay, I need like a bigger tool that can do more. And if you're spending like 50, bucks a month or 60 bucks a month or something, I don't know, that you don't really need. I just, I wanted to just find like some kind of alternative where it's like, hey, I could sit here probably for the next, year or 2 years on this, if I needed to, on this free plan. And then again, as a independent contractor, a solopreneur, or an entrepreneur, you know, that $50 a month, you know, that's money I don't spend, but I'm still doing what I need to do. So as much as I love my beloved active campaign, which I do, you know, I think that you want to use the tool that's right for, you know, for where you're at. So again, I'm not saying don't use MailChimp, and it's just, I've got it. There's just a couple of things that piss me off about MailChimp. So, but
What
I
are
just
they?
think some-
I'm curious because I used MailChimp before, and then it was for a different project, and then now I was gonna start using it for because I've just been doing like normal text emails for all my promotion, and I'm wanting to like make it look more elegant and like have like a nice big colorful button people can click on and just like make things really easy. And I'm curious, before I get, you know, invest a lot of time into setting up my MailChimp, I'm curious, what are the few things that you don't like about it?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's just, you know, I mean, the first thing is that, so MailChimp did this thing that was really smart, you know, where they were giving like 2,000, you could have 2,000 contacts for, you know, free. So you could get up to 2,000. That's, you know, that's a lot. And, you know, you could do it was, you know, it was fine. Like and they gave you like in that free plan, you know, there were like enough features that you could, you know, pretty much do what you needed to do. But that's since, you know, so then that really helped them build up, you know, their business, and then, you know, more people know about them and all of that. But that's gone away. You know, I have a detailed, I've done sort of detailed research, you know, comparing all of the different platforms as far as pricing. And the MailChimp free plan is not, it's like it's like 500 now, you know, so, and there's no there's not even a welcome automation, you know, so I think a lot of times, you know, they built that by, you know, like their reputation, you know, for people starting out saying, hey, you know, come with us and you can do this free plan, you know, for a while until you get your business going, and then, you know, you can pay us. I don't think that's the case anymore. And I think they also have, you know, like they're not cheap, you know, they're not like to get, you know, so to get any of the features, you know, even if you want like a welcome automation, so somebody signs up for your email and you just want to send an autoresponder, you have to start paying. So, you know, that's one thing. The other thing, when I was using it before, there was a couple of things that pissed me off. The number one thing was that it wouldn't save, like there was nowhere to save your, maybe they figured this out, right? 2 years, you know, or however long it's been, you know, they've configured these features out. But in the email editor, your brand colors, you couldn't like save them, right? So every time I needed to highlight something or make something another freaking color, I had to go back to get the hex number, you know, and then go back. And I was like, it just, you know, it pissed me off a lot. And I'm like, this is, you know, this is
Yeah,
dumb.
because that's like a really simple feature to add.
It's a simple feature, and it was really like, because you use it all the time. There was a point where I was going to get my primary clients, the hex numbers like tattooed on my, you know, on my arm, you know, so that way I could just have them accessible at every time. But we switched platforms, and so I didn't have to do that, thankfully. Because, you know, sometimes people change branding. And then the third thing is that they don't have they don't have something called date-based automations, you know, which is like, and I'll show you while I'm saying it. You know, the automations, they're only time-based. And I know, and I have this issue with Zoho as well. But you know, Zoho is super cheap. But you know, so here, right? See, so if I want to send like, you know, emails, you know, an email sequence, you know, especially like a reminder sequence, right? I want to say, you know, okay, send this email at this date, you know, whatever, 2025, the 15th of March, 2025, and then do this thing, right? And MailChimp doesn't have that. And I checked not that long ago. They just have like time wait conditions, right? So it's like, wait 1 day, wait 1 week, wait 1 year, you know? But if I want to send things on specific days, I just want to I don't want to have to track back in time and not get it right. I just want to have that.
So
So that, yeah.
So with MailChimp, you can't be like schedule for next Tuesday at this time.
And no, you can do that. You can schedule emails. Yeah, for a specific time. So there's two kinds. There's a broadcast email, which is just the regular emails where you're just, I'm going to schedule it and it just gets sent. You know, so yeah, like all of them, you can schedule a single email, but there's things called automations. Again, maybe this is not something you get into, but there's, you know, these things like this that are automations where, you know, so it's like a simple one might be like a welcome sequence, right? That's like kind of your most basic, you know, kind of automation. You know, which is like somebody signs up and welcome email. I'm not getting to, but basically somebody signs up, you know, and then you send there's an automation, right? That sends them an email back, says, hey, thanks for signing up. You know, my name is Justine, I do this. And then, you know, later on, you know, whatever, this one you can use, you know, so like 3 days later, you send them something, hey, you know, like, here's something you don't know about me. And then 3 days later, you send something, you know, here's a 20% discount, you know, for this service. So those are like automations, but a lot of them, you know, especially, and maybe it's because I'm working with people that do courses. So in that case, you know, there's a lot of like specific automations that have to do with, you know, that need to be sent on specific dates.
Yeah.
Right. So an automation is different than a single email. It's like a sequence of emails.
Okay. And
Yeah.
you still compose, you like individually compose all of them, but you're kind of setting them up in advance. Okay.
Yeah.
Could you just schedule like multiple emails? I guess it still doesn't give you like a visual of like what's happening.
Yeah, you can, but you know, but then it's like one off. So let's say you have a class, you know, again, you know, like here, let's say you have you know, a class that you run, you know, multiple times. If you send emails, you have to like schedule those emails all the time. If you just have
Oh, so it's like literally the same email, but it just
yeah, you can like
resends
you can clone the automation, right? So this is
Okay.
yeah, so somebody signs up for the class and they get the welcome. Okay, you know, so you say, right, there's other things that you can do, right? You can
Oh,
you can
so it's
add
like a series of
tags.
things that they, as soon as they sign up, they are like now signed up for this series of emails that's going to send them the confirmation. Then it's going to send them the link, and then it's going to send that. Yeah. Okay. I see what it is. I see.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to
Okay.
send them, it's going to subscribe them to a certain, you know, list, or it's going to add a certain tag, right? So it's so there's things you can do. Yeah, so it's going to send them here, and then it's going to send them an email like a week before the class. It's going to send them an email 2 days before the class. But it's a pain to it's easier if that's just yeah, it's easier if that's just a date based, you know, if you can just choose the date. Again, you know, I mean, I'm being picky, but these were just things that I remember that pissed me off. So this is, you know, this is the automation builder in Get Response. And there's yeah, like here, you know, you could wait for for an amount of time, but here you can say wait until a specific day and time. So I'm just going to give a date. I'm going to say, okay, well, I want to send this, the class is Saturday. I'm just going to send it here at 5:45. Done.
Okay. Cool.
So, you know, I'm not saying like don't use MailChimp. I also don't really love like the way that they're, at least when I was using it before, I didn't really love the way that they set up their you know, their tags. Oh yeah, that was another thing that pissed me off. There was this thing where like you couldn't see the list of you wanted to see the list of the people with the tags, but you couldn't. And anyways, you know, yeah.
Out of the three that you use, is there one that you like the most? Like out of GetResponse, ActiveCampaign, and Zoho?
Yeah, I think that those are three that I like, that I recommend. I think it depends on, the price point that you want to, this was fairly recently updated. I know this might just look like a bunch of gobbledygook, but, it also depends on the features. So, Active Campaign is still, it's going to be, I think, at least like, 30 bucks a month or 40 bucks a month.
Mhm.
Get Response is cheaper. Again, Zoho free, you can ride that for a little while. MailChimp to even have a responder, looks like it was in for 500, looks like it was $13 a month annually, so I'm not sure what it is. So you're asking me a question. Okay, I guess my question back would be like, what's your budget? What do you want to spend on this?
Right. I guess, well, okay, so I don't know about the other ones, but I know through MailChimp, if you just use your Gmail email account, your shit ends up in their spam box, in people's spam
Aha.
box. You have to have a at your website, which is fine. I can do that. I have a website, but I have to then pay $10 a month to have an at website email account. Because it's not like I didn't build my website from HTML scratch. Like I used a host site. You know what I mean? So like anybody
Yeah.
who's using Wix or whatever, if you want to email through your website, a lot of times to have an email set up that your address is at the website, you have to pay a certain amount. So already just to basically not be able to send things from Gmail, already just using MailChimp without paying for MailChimp, even when using MailChimp free, I still have to pay $10 a month for some other email.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. So you have a domain that you
I have a
bought,
domain.
that you own. Okay.
Yeah.
And then
It-
you have a Wix website, but are you
It's
oh,
not Wix. I used Yola, which is a different thing a lot of people don't know about, but it's great.
okay.
I've been using it for like 20 years.
That's awesome. Yeah. Zoe actually told me, she's like, oh yeah, Justine uses Yola. And I looked at it. Yeah, it looks cool. It looks like, Squarespace or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, okay, but do you, if, so who's your host? Like who is the website host? Is that through Yola?
Yola is the host site. So Yola, like Wix, what are other ones? Squarespace. Yola is the host site. It's the site builder.
Okay.
So
And so then,
you go on there and make your own website.
right. And so, but you have so who's asking you to pay $10 a month? Where is that going?
Well, it's Yola Mail. It's like in order to have an inbox through your website. Because so do you guys have,
Okay.
you have
Yeah,
an
you mean so an
that-
email, your email host. So that way you
Yeah,
can
I'm talking
have
about the actual, like your actual email address. So if you go into MailChimp and I wanted to use my, email address, let's just say, since we're recording, circuswedding@gmail.com, like whatever my Gmail address is. And I put that as my sender address in MailChimp. Everything that MailChimp sends out, like a huge majority of
yeah,
it
you can't.
will end
Yeah, I
up
get that.
in the spam. And I don't know why that is. Maybe because if you don't have a URL, you're less official, and therefore I don't understand why they do that. Like
Yeah. Well, I could
sending you to some
explain it.
place.
It's probably not
Not worth it,
worthwhile to do
okay.
that now.
Yeah.
But actually, I was reading this here. I was reading this article because I actually do have to understand that. And it's a little kind of complex, but I was reading this article about email deliverability. Look at the article. It's just like,
Mm.
it gets worse. Anyways, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna.
Yeah, it's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing, but okay. So the idea is you actually, so technically you don't need an email host in order to have your uh, in order to have an email marketing platform. You just need the domain. But that being said, if you want anybody to reply back, to you at the domain address, then you do need an email host.
Yeah.
Right. So, right. So I don't know that you necessarily have to have it with Yola. Like you can, like people use Google, Google Workspace. So that's like six
Oh,
or
really?
$6.50 a
You
month.
can just like pop in your and then does it send it to your Gmail account? Or it's like a separate thing?
It's a separate thing, but you can set it up so you can use one Gmail inbox for both of them if you want.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Yeah, because I also
Yeah.
don't want to check another thing.
If you're used to, yeah. If you're used to using Gmail anyways, I mean, then I would recommend, you know, eh, I would recommend just doing, Google email hosting as your host. I'd have to see, what Yola says, because Squarespace actually, at least last time I checked, Squarespace just set you up with Google. They said like, hey, use your domain email, but they just set you up with a Google account. And you could, they did it so that way you could set it up with them, and it makes it easier. So maybe that's what Yola is saying. But, it's Google Workspace, per email account, is like $6.50 a month. And then you have a Google Workspace, and then you can just use Gmail. So that's your email host. And so an email, so that is actually like a separate host than the email marketing platform. So the email marketing platform, you're paying for it, but they are taking care of like the deliverability.
Yeah.
And the authentication. You have to authenticate it with them. So you have to, put records into your domain records. But once that happens, right, they are the host for that. So they're sending all of those out.
Yeah. Okay.
But you're right. If you want somebody to reply back, if you want to, you could set it up so that way you're sending from, Justine@circusemail.com, and then they could reply back to the Gmail. But again, that's not a great idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Or you do one of those no replies. Yeah. Yeah. I think if you're kind of operating, like if you're operating your business on more of like a personal level, you're offering something like coaching or something that's interactive, I feel like it's important for people to be able to write you back with questions and not have to like go through your website to send a question or go through some whole other thing. I'd like them
Yeah.
to hit reply,
Yeah.
So I'll look into Google Workspace. That's cool. I didn't know about that.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a little, technical stuff, they got, and maybe, Yola maybe makes it, easier to, they do some of that for you, but essentially,
I don't
yeah.
think so. I think it's just like, I think it's probably for people like me who don't know that you can use a different email host with your domain. I was assuming because my website's through Yola, like that I would have to get the email domain through Yola.
Right. Yeah, and that's not true. Because your website, yeah, you have you have your website hosting. So that's through Yola. So your website has to be hosted by someone.
Mm-hmm.
But then that's actually your website host can be the same as your email host, and some of them do. But most of the time these days it's separate.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if, as far as Yola, but like most website hosts, I think more and more these days, they don't even want to get involved with email hosting because it's a whole thing.
Yeah, a lot more storage and a lot more different kinds of functions.
I'm gonna
You know,
keep
'cause it's
going,
a
guys,
constant-
but I just want to say, yay.
Thanks
Yeah,
for
we're,
hanging
like,
on in this
super-
whole conversation,
We're
Saya.
like super dorking out right
Yeah.
here. Okay.
That's okay. I was listening and I was taking a few notes of like sort of summary of the Skillshare, sort of reviewing and writing about this whole time. So that was really great. Thank you both so much.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Saya.
you're welcome. Thanks, Saya.
Oh,
Yeah.
Saya. Okay,
Saya. Yeah, Saya.
cool. Cool.
Cool. We can I'll stop recording.